Mark, you look like you were about to.
Yeah, it was a tell.
As a European, as a
European, I am a European, actually.
Oh, you are?
I'm an Irish citizen. Yeah, so there you
welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Speaking as a European, I like to say following.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. It's a real pleasure today to have Melanie in Saskatchewan. I think I'm the first person to interview this social media phenomenon, and it was a real pleasure. And before we go there, though, of course, we're going to show you our introduction, and I'll be back with something I've put together of late.
The Prime Minister lied, and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need to resolve to resist.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. No. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, we're doing it live. Now, I want to show you, before I get to the interview, what we've been working on here. There's a part 2 coming up on this, but this is volume 1 here. And this, of course, is the most corrupt prime minister in Canadian history, which is something Melanie has been focusing on of late. And what we talk about in this interview is, why isn't anybody else? And I just want to read how this article starts. And like I say, you can find this on my Substack. Go to www.KRAYDEN'snews.com. It's doing quite well. We just put this up to the day. We try to get 2 or 3 up a week. I wasn't writing a lot in the weeks after my mother's passing. It was just difficult. And I'm sure you all understand that. But I want to read the beginning of this. For anyone watching the news, it's becoming increasingly apparent that Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney's so-called trade missions have many interesting coincidental ties to Brookfield Asset Management, the company Carney headed as chairman of the board before he ran for the Liberal leadership. Carney joined Brookfield in 2020 as vice chairman and head of transition investing, co-leading their Global Transition Fund, later becoming chairman of Brookfield in 2025. Carney won the Liberal leadership and Canada's general election on April 28th to become the Prime Minister of Canada. Duly elected anyway. Carney has literally at least 103 conflicts of interest, which we will show you later in this article, have been blatant and are increasingly in your face. On the trade mission, his conflicts of interest are being flouted openly again and again. It seems a bold pay-for-play scheme that is completely overt and is never investigated by the corporate media, the Parliamentary Ethics Commissioner, or the police. Now, I want to get to this interview because it's a long one, but I think you're going to like this. And we replay that Mark Carney European clip at the very beginning.
Mark, you look like you were about to.
Yeah, it was a tell.
As a European, as a
European, I am a European, actually.
Oh, you are?
I'm an Irish citizen. Yeah, so there you
welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Speaking as a European, I like to say following.
Yeah, that's. I want to say, first of all, welcome to the show, Melanie in Saskatchewan. And it's a pleasure to have you here. And thank you for accepting our invitation to appear on the show.
Thank
you. That was, of course, Mark Carney at the WEF, World Economic Forum, doing as usual. I'm a European, and I don't think Canadians ever had more warning about an incoming prime minister as they had with Mark Carney. We knew he was in China's pocket. We knew he was a globalist. We knew that Canada First had nothing to do with it. We knew about Brookfield Asset Management. We knew about the taxes that weren't being paid in Canada. We knew about Brookfield doing horrible things around the world. The list goes on and on and on. But since becoming prime minister after his election on April 25th, it just gets worse, doesn't it? And this is why I have you on the show today, because you're a citizen journalist. And I don't know how long you have been delving into reporting, but I have to tell you, Melanie, you're doing a better job than most of the mainstream media. And we're going to go through this in a minute here because I was very impressed with this. And we just put this up yesterday. I've done innumerable articles about Mark Carney over the last year, largely tying him to G-fans and tying him to China, his desire for China to replace the United States as the world power, his desire for the yuan to replace the US dollar. But I think you have really focused on some things that, as I said, we were talking offline, so let's get to a conversation here. But as I was saying offline, I find it amazing that Mark Carney goes around the world, jet sets around the world, and everywhere he goes, either Brookfield has just signed a contract 2 days earlier or just signs a contract 2 days later. It's not like these are isolated incidents. And I mean, do you find it amazing that the mainstream media just doesn't pick up on this? Or when it's reported by people like you and I, it's like, well, what's the matter with that? I don't get the problem.
I honestly, it is so convoluted. I believe that it's willful blindness on their part. We all know that the media, that their bread is buttered by taxpayer dollars for the most part. I'm convinced that they're told what can and can't be said, especially in light of Don Raj's testimony there in committee about what CBC allows. So it kind of gets me thinking, because I have very, very low tolerance for hypocrisy and for incompetence. Those are like my pet peeves. If I had to put a pet peeve category, that's them. And that's all I see coming out of this administration. And I don't know if they assume I don't know what to be more upset about, that they think we're too stupid to notice or too stupid to care. But they still treat us this way, and nobody's speaking up. And every poll keeps indicating it's the much older part of the boomer section. And I don't even want to say all boomers, because almost every boomer I've ever known or met, my husband was a boomer, they can't stand the whole idea of it. So they've done a good job at whitewashing his intentions. He's a little bit more polished when he speaks. And at the end of the day, he has this pretty cute little resume, and not one person picked up the phone to check his references. Not one. I mean, I would not want these people in charge of hiring anyone for a company. If you can't even figure out pick up the phone and call like the Bank of England or any of the people that those circles he ran in and say, well, what was his performance like? Is there anything we should be concerned about? No one did this. And instead, he was just presented as green Jesus. If you ask me, that's how he presents himself. Mm-hmm. And nowhere did he say when he was campaigning that his entire goal was to completely shift us off of the States and align us with the European Union. I did not vote for that at all. I don't know anyone who did. So, and all these little announcements that he keeps making, they're made so that, hey, everybody feel good about this announcement, but no one's looking any deeper. And it's got to be, I know it's specific. It's deliberate. It's willful. And it's just sickening. And this is why I write, because it irritates me to no end, and more people need to know.
So I love the way you've characterized this as a remarkable coincidence.
It's very hard to keep that sarcasm down in me. I'm just naturally sarcastic, so I got to pull it back.
Well, I think that's exactly, either it's a remarkable coincidence or there's some kind of collusion going on here, and it certainly appears to be the latter. But if we just go, I just want to go bring up your piece here and have a quick look. Because, I mean, if you could just walk us, is there anything in particular that got you going on this in terms of how did you clue into what, I mean, I really think more people should be, but you clued in, you had the revelation, you understood that Mark Carney was clearly jet setting around the world, not working for Canada, but working for Brookfield Asset Management. So at what point was that obvious to you?
I'm suspicious by nature. I just don't trust these people in power of position. And then, to be perfectly honest, I cannot take full credit for this because Moose on the Loose in his Moose chart is absolutely astounding, that information. So when I want to know something, I'll go over to that chart and I'll take a boo. And then I'll start digging up information on my own. But part of it is I'm severely ADHD and it's hard, like medications don't work. So my brain's always running rampant. And for me, it's patterns. I notice a lot of patterns. And then little things will stick in my head and then someone will say a word and it triggers the thought. So I sign up because I'm so against the corruption and the manipulation because we are being managed as a whole, our entire society. And I sign up for all the little emails. So I get an email every day, several times a day from the PMO, tell me what's going on here, what's going on there. I have my browser is filled with files on all the ministers, their portfolios, bills they've done, things they've said. So when I start seeing these announcements coming out through the media or like through Brookfield's own personal site, they will make the announcements of things that they've done or where they've been, new investments. The investment magazines, they make these announcements. I don't know how many newsletters that come into my email every day, and I use keywords. So I will type in certain keywords, and whenever something related to that is found online, it funnels its way to my inbox. So I start my day at 4 a.m. I just naturally get up at 4 a.m, and I usually spend the first 2 hours soaking everything up. Then I go drive the kids on the bus, nice little levity break, and it gives me time to sort it all out. And then I start thinking of different questions and different issues. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If he was just in Mumbai, I could have swore I saw something from Brookfield. He was just in Mumbai. That was really close. I got to go check the Moose chart. And then it's like, what the heck? And then I get upset about it. And for me, with the ADHD, my thoughts get bollocksed up. So I don't speak anywhere near as well as I can write. Because when I write, I have a trail I can follow. So I express it that way. And I figure if I'm upset about it and angry about it, other people will be too. And they should know. So I do my level best to put it out there. And I say it every time. Like, I never ask anyone to subscribe or donate or anything like that, because I think an informed citizenry is a wise voting citizenry. I don't care how anyone votes, just know what you're doing. Like, do some work, putting some work ahead of that, right? And if people in Canada, if people in Toronto and Montreal and those little strongholds took half a day and this is what I implore people, please take one thing that you think you know about Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre, for instance, and just fact check that for yourself and see, you would be much better informed. So, and that's why I do this. I put it out there because a lot of people don't have the time to go and check this stuff out and look for the stuff and see the connections and the links. So if I can get it out there, I'm going to. And hopefully they will share that with other people. I don't ever expect any of these politicians to read my stuff, although I do know they do. My goal is to inform the friends of the Liberal voters who have something to talk about over coffee with them. And hey, and now it's time to start addressing the kids of these people. But it's like, you need to go to your parents and tell them this is not working anymore. You grew up with CBC. You used to be able to trust CBC. You can no longer trust CBC. So, cut the cord, stream something, learn something. So the pattern is what stands out for me. And then it'll just pop in my head, which is why when you look at the pieces that I write, there's different facets and angles, because it'll just pop to me like a thunderbolt. Oh my Lord, what about this? What about that? I mean, if he just did all this running, I know he set up the transition fund, that global transition fund in Brookfield, and Brookfield's in Mumbai. I wonder what they were there for. And then I would go look, they're there about critical minerals. Well, Carney was just there and made an announcement about critical minerals. He has unrealized stock options that he is going to pay out someday. And the better this fund does, the more he's going to make. At the end of the day, we as Canadian taxpayers are highly subsidizing and funding his entire retirement, whatever he gets when he cashes that out. And it's going to be a lot of money, millions and millions, maybe even close to $1 billion, depending on how well the funds do. I mean, I even bought one share in Brookfield in the renewable thing through the Wealth Simple app when I was learning how to do that, just so I could keep an eye on it. And it's really funny because when you look at all the oil's going up, but the Brookfield infrastructure, it's not doing so well. It's It's not going up. So I just, it's a thorn in my side, basically. So I like to, if something upsets me and irks me, I monitor it.
Well, I just want to go through a couple of these coincidences, because
I mean, if I had coincidences like that, I'd be buying a lottery ticket 6 times.
Like I'll just read from your posters. In France, Brookfield moved first. On May 30th, 2024, it entered exclusive negotiations to acquire a controlling stake in, I think that's Neoen, one of Europe's largest renewable energy developers. On December 3rd, 2024, it publicly committed to expanding investment in France. Then on February 10th, 2025, Brookfield and the French government unveiled a 20 billion euro AI and data center initiative. Less than a year later, Brookfield's initial move, Mark Carney, was in Paris on January 5th to 6th, 2026, meeting at the highest levels on energy and investment. The same sector, the same country, within the same calendar window. And I think, Melanie, a lot of people some people started to notice in Qatar when, as you say, the timing compresses further. Brookfield launched a $100 billion global AI infrastructure program on November 19th, 2025. Of course, Carney is definitely Prime Minister, then followed by a $20 billion AI partnership tied to the Qatar Investment Authority on December 9th, 2025. On January 8th, 2026, Carney announced his trip, and on January 18th, 2026, he arrived in Doha to deepen cooperation in AI, energy, and investment. The gap between Brookfield's Qatar deal and Carney's arrival was roughly 40 days. Now, I find that you have spelled it out, and you say, well, and it's time after time. Malaysia, South Korea, UAE, India, across Singapore, Japan, and of course this latest jet-setting tour of his, he hit every spot, and it was like he's getting so used to getting away with this that he is. It's incredible to me that he thinks he can continue to get away with it. And so it's almost like it's become so obvious with what he's doing that it's brazen. It's absolutely brazen.
And you got to wonder, does he even care? Because I have a lot of background training in law enforcement stuff. And fun fact, I don't have a personality to be a police officer. But the law fascinates me in the aspect that I took the psychology training behind it. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what makes this man tick other than money. And I find myself every time I come to the conclusion, does he even care that we see this? Is he even going to make an effort? I don't know if he's just doing what he wants to do and his handlers just kind of mop up the mess behind and kind of give him a few tips here and there before he goes. What was the one we saw there not too long ago? His communications girl was right there with him, and she's like leaning in and she's listening to the whole thing, and you can see on her face, and she's like, yeah, you can answer that one. I don't think he cares. I don't think he thinks about that. He has one goal, and it has nothing to do with improving the lives of Canadian or even this country. He is a green fever fanatic for the eco thing. I mean, it all started when I did my article. I broke it down, and there was so much to cover. I thought, let's just work at the part from since he's been PM, right? And just those relations there. But when you go to the back, like to 2020, when he started in with the Prime Minister's office as well as Brookfield, and then comes along G-Fans. So now he's running in the same circles. He's got input and power to all of the ecosystems that feed that. This is, for all intents and purposes, as much as I would like to say he's an idiot, he's probably one of the smartest manipulators and people out there. He's got an agenda. He's going to stick to it regardless. So the trick is, what's that end game? And that's what drives me every day. What is the end game? What is he going to do next? Is he going to censor us so that we can't talk about it anymore? And we can't call him out. We can't embarrass him publicly. Who's going to go to jail for that? Why is he so hell-bent on getting us attached to the EU? I don't want to be part of the EU, right? So, but all of a sudden, now there's talk about attaching us to the EU. What purpose is that going to serve? I don't ever remember saying or agreeing or hearing him say that he was going to completely shift us away from the United States in its entirety. And the reason why is the United States doesn't play ball when it comes to the climate change nonsense under Trump anyway.
Yeah.
It's like they forget that Trump's only got 3 more years and he can't be president again. So we just have to outlive that, you know?
Well, that's very, very true. I think one of the most outrageous examples is when Carney, of course, has given billions of dollars to Ukraine, like his predecessor, and always saying this is because we believe in the freedom of the Ukrainians, and of course, the Ukraine is about as corrupt. The government of Ukraine is as corrupt as the Carney government. Money is disappearing into their pockets, into Swiss banks, into yachts and houses overseas. Yep. And Mark Carney, of course, continues to dispense the money. But we learned, of course, there's a reason for this. It's not just because he's found another government as corrupt as his own. He's protecting those
nuclear plants,
reactors. And he wants, and some of them are behind Russian lines. And he wants to make sure the post-war Ukraine does not include nuclear reactors behind Russian lines that are owned by Westinghouse.
Exactly. By Brookfield. Exactly. And as long as they sit idle and under Putin's control, there's no money being made for Brookfield. That's less retirement for Carney, you know? So yeah, you're right. Exactly. So I don't think there's a single move coming out of the PMO that doesn't involve Brookfield and him personally and his own ethos. You know, whatever pops into his head, he seems to think he has an instant mandate for. And that's why I did up a petition. I'm like, we need to start having more referendums in this country before these people get it in their heads. We just got to go and do this because I'm elected. That doesn't mean you have the right to do this. Nobody asked you to go and transfer us away from the States. You were supposed to mend that relationship, leverage the relationship, and make it work for us. You're not even talking to the guy. Who cares? It's a detail. I care. My kid's future cares. There's homeless people, starving seniors. We have people without doctors, people who can't get homes. They care. Carney doesn't seem to care about them, but he'll say all the right words to let you think he cares. And sadly, we have that one little group, that one little demographic in Canada that doesn't have to worry about their finances or their homes or their health care. So they're, hey, let's just go along to get along because the guy sounds sane. Look at his resume. Who needs to make a phone call on that? So I don't understand.
Especially with the example of Ukraine, it's not just what appears to be personal graft. It's that he is basing our foreign policy on basically his own personal interests, and that to me is just way beyond the pale, because I keep calling this the most corrupt government in Canadian history. I can't think of another prime minister, because largely they've all been lawyers. You know, typically lawyers are the ones who gravitate towards politics and get up the stream to become prime minister or official opposition leaders. But this is probably the biggest businessman we've ever had in Canada, and certainly somebody who understands how the system works. Yeah, I wanted to pick up on something you said. You wanted to believe Mark Carney was really not that intelligent, was stupid. And I have to confess, Melanie, when he first came on the scene, I don't remember covering Mark Carney at all as governor of the Bank of England or governor of the Bank of Canada, even though when he was governor of the Bank of Canada, I was working on Parliament Hill during the Stephen Harper years. I don't remember ever noting anything Mark Carney did or said. And I can't remember paying much attention to him when he was governor of the Bank of England, except we would hear he was trying to spend the country into the ground. He was printing money like mad. And so I did take note of that. But when I watched Mark Carney run for the Liberal leadership, I thought, this guy's a political lightweight. He's going to be destroyed. And I actually compared him to one of my favorite Peter Sellers movie called Being There. There's a character in that movie who is basically not all there, but he says exactly what he sees on television. So he just repeats what he sees on television. The character's name is Chauncey Gardner. And I thought, I said, Mark Carney's another Chauncey Gardner, he's going to repeat exactly what he's told. And it's just like he's a television prime minister who will tell you exactly what you want to hear at every stop. I was so wrong about that, because this man is not just intelligent. He's cunning. He's extremely clever. He knows his people. He knows how to use weakness against people. And I've never seen a prime minister get away with the kind of complete changes in policy, flip-flops, as we say in the political world. And it came to me, I said, this guy is playing us all. When after he wins the federal election on the elbows up crap, and the Donald Trump and the United States are existential threats to Canada, we have to look to Europe, we have to look to China. The first thing he does after being elected is run down to meet with Donald Trump, and he's slobbering all over Donald Trump as transformational president. Mr. President, you're transformative. Mr. President, I admire all the work you've done in your country. And I thought, are Canadians going to look at this and say, oh, what did we just vote for? This is supposed to be the elbows up prime minister. And of course, it was all a joke. He knew Donald Trump was not an existential threat. In fact, they go back almost 20 years.
Yeah, no.
They're old friends, and they know the same people. And so to portray the United States as an existential threat, Carney knew this was a joke. This was a political gag. And I don't understand why people 65 and over were so susceptible to believing this. I really have no idea. It totally amazed me to see these geriatrics out there with their fingers in the camera threatening people, because I couldn't believe it. But to me, that was just more evidence of this man is dangerous. And I mean, the latest polls, I was talking about this yesterday in a radio interview I did with a friend of mine. We do this every week, talk about the weekly politics. And he said to me, what do you make of Mark Carney at 60% approval rate with Canadians? The Liberal Party now at 47 to 50% in the polls, which is about where Pierre Poilievre was exactly a year and a bit ago, when Justin Trudeau was hanging on at the very basement of his unpopularity. And I said, the host's name was Mark. I said, Mark, I can't account for it, except Canadians seem to be incredibly stupid. and not very perspicacious, because it's pretty damn obvious, as you have noted, that if you just look at this man's record and look at what he's doing every time he leaves the country, you should be shaking your head and saying, we're being taken. This guy is robbing the store blind. And it's like nobody in the legacy media wants to point it out.
Blinders on.
It's blinders on. I want to ask you, the recent Pierre Poilievre interview with Joe Rogan, I thought it was politically very astute. And Pierre does extremely well in interview situations, does very well in Parliament. And so I'm not surprised he pulled that off as well as he did. What did surprise me, and I have to say, I was almost shocked when he said I think it was near the beginning of the interview, he said that he's texting Mark Carney every day to tell him of his whereabouts and what happened during the day. And I said, well, I guess I can excuse him for that, because he doesn't want to appear like he's going against Canadian foreign policy or as some sort of an encumbrance. But then he said, because I know Mark Carney and I share the same idea that we put Canada first. And I said, no, you don't. No, you don't. And you should not be telling people that Mark Carney puts Canada first. He does not. He puts Brookfield and himself first, usually in the other order. But I thought that was a very dangerous thing to say, because I've been saying for quite some time that Pierre Poilievre needs, and I have to say, I've worked for Conservative MPs. I was at one time a card-carrying member of the Conservative Party. I haven't been for years because I've been doing journalism. I don't think a journalist should belong to any political party. But I'll say this. I think Pierre Poilievre needs to run against Mark Carney as a corrupt government leader, as the leader, the prime minister of a very corrupt government. And I don't think we're hearing enough about that. What do you think about that, Mel?
I think there's a much bigger strategy at play here. Part of it being is how often have we heard, and I always come back to this. A lot of people kept, okay, so the Liberals have successfully painted Pierre as this monster, this nasty, evil person. And everyone kept saying, well, he's always arguing and he's so hateful. So I'm of the mind that what we're seeing is actually the way Poilievre is, like what we saw in that Joe Rogan interview. That is his natural cadence and the way he presents himself. That's who he is. But I think, especially being on foreign soil, he was being very careful with his words. I also think that he's trying to steal their attack thunder down the road. Because, I mean, like, look at poor McKinnon. Steve McKinnon and not Paul LeBlanc, but
You mean Paul McKinnon?
Well, no, in the Liberal Party, every time they get
I see, yeah.
green and they go red, I'm waiting for them to fall over from a heart attack. You should see them on TV. Like, it's wild. But they take every little tiny thing and dissect what he can possibly say. They attribute meaning to it that is like they invent it. And then the next thing you know, everybody's running with it. I think he's deliberately feeding the narrative to the Liberals so that there's less for them to use to paint him as something he's not. The less ammunition they have, the better. Right now, they currently they hold his voting record against him. Things like far away land. Like, who gets offended by far away land? Liberals managed to do it. So I think by choosing his words the way he does, he's showing people that he's reasonable, that he does in fact have Canada's best interests at heart. And he's trying to reach those people who see the same thing in Carney. So if he's presenting it as a middle ground already, like, here's a commonality, let's build from that, they're going to be more apt to listen to the words coming from Pierre than just assuming that everything that the media is saying about him is true. That's my concept of it anyway. Do I wish he said some of those things? No, I wish he hadn't have. I really wish he would take them back to task with all the conveniences and the corruption. It's way too much. But I also think they're giving Carney some rope to hang himself with, because then it'll be irrefutable. Because I don't think Carney has as much of a runway this time as Trudeau had, because we were already exhausted from all of the nonsense with Trudeau and the corruption. Just name it, pick one, name it. And Carney is rapidly already starting to prove that he's very much in that line. And then when you attribute the fact that Carney's been in the Liberal orbit since 2020, advising the economic recovery, like, it's been how many years now? 6 years? There's still not even a hint of recovery, nowhere. And he's been advising it all this time. So I think they're giving him the rope and the language to hang himself, so they can come back and throw that language right back in his face, just like they do to him.
Well, that's an interesting analysis of that. And
I mean, that's what I would do.
I think that's shared by a lot of the grassroots who were disappointed, but are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But if that rope doesn't appear and Carney doesn't take that rope, I think they've got to hammer home the corruption message.
Oh, yeah.
If these polls are unchanged. And I said yesterday, I think the Rogan appearance is going to bump Pierre up by 2 or 3 percentage points at least. And this could be the turning point in this. Goodness only knows. But I've watched politics for a long time. I've been very close to it. Maybe so. I hope that's the case. But what amazes me again is that we're not seeing the criticism. And if you consider, for instance, what he's doing to pensions, the Canada pension plan, and this is a guy who, once again, has repeatedly leveraged the pension plans, the Maple 8 in this country, to create trade deals. And to me, that is very volatile. gambling with the people's money. Literally, he's gambling with the people's money. This could disappear, and there have been examples of this happening where countries have put their people's pension funds into investments, and it's gone. It's evaporated.
Like
And
that.
but why do you think there hasn't been any pushback on this? Why is it suddenly it's okay to sort of dabble with the pensions now and use them as some sort of surplus capital in the country? And I don't see the media really questioning this. And even some fairly prominent independent media that are very aligned with the conservatives and Pierre Poilievre, excuse me, are not really thinking there's a problem here with the pensions, when to me it's more damning evidence that Carney is dangerous.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the Ontario teacher pension, it was reported just recently. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't give you specifics, but for the first time, they've lost a lot of money in their pension, and it's all tied to a lot of convenient, renewable Brookfield Carney type stuff, right? Mm-hmm. They lost money, so I'm wondering. But I think part of the issue with the pension is the way it was presented, because we have that caveat built into our system that once the pension hits a certain amount, anything above and beyond that can be withdrawn by the government and applied elsewhere. And it was presented as that, not so much as in the entire pension fund initially. It was first talked about and presented as, oh, it's just the excess. It's in the law. We have a caveat for that. And this is normal. This is what we do. And that's where people stop listening. So now, in this day and age where everything is just instantaneous and so quick, and most people just read headlines and make their assumptions, those who have heard, oh yeah, well, that's right, it's a caveat, don't worry, and they just hear, well, the CPP, and they tune out. They don't hear the whole thing. I think that's part of the reason. Well, a good part of the reason. I also think a lot of people aren't listening anymore. It's all in the presentation. Like Carney just puts himself off. I mean, he's a banker. He's a central banker. He knows everything. This is a man who knows how, he alone knows how the world works. Everybody glosses he has a degree in international relations. Everyone's like, nobody thinks to know this, right? But yeah, the whole pension thing, sadly, not enough Canadians. We haven't hit rock bottom, and it comes down to that. We need to hit rock bottom. And until rock bottom is achieved, no one's going to really pay attention, because the people who keep voting in Carney, they're not affected by these issues at all. They're not affected by those pensions. So they don't care. They're tuning it out. And then there's the rest of the country who doesn't have a pension. Like, I don't have a pension through work or anything like that. I have no pension. I have just CPP, whatever that's going to be. I'm terrified of aging out. I'm hoping it's still there. But we already saw that Carney likes to change things in the books to present debt as something else so that it can look smaller. So I wouldn't be one bit surprised if the language around the pension part changes, so that people are not going to really notice that what he's saying is, yeah, I'm going to, we're going to direct whoever invests the pension funds to do this. And they all run in those same circles. They all know each other. So, and it was already like his ethics screen. They even said, well, no, we don't police his phone calls. We don't monitor anything like that. Nothing coming in or out. So we don't know. So at the end of the day, nobody knows if Carney's at home having a cognac or whatever that is, whiskey, whatever, in his hand, with a fat cigar, with his legs crossed over, kicking his toes and going, oh yeah, you should have seen the one I pulled on them today. This is going to be so easy. These people are like sheep. We'll just change this word here and we can take all their money and they're not even going to blink. And he's a smart man. He knows what he's doing. And most people don't understand that language. So they should make it a point to learn up something about that, I guess.
Well, I think like most dictators, and I almost use that word without any hesitation now. A lot of people might think I'm exaggerating. Becoming a dictator, this government's authoritarian. It's doing a lot of things simultaneous with the corruption that I find very alarming, most of which I would say is the censorship and surveillance state he's creating. We've got Bill C8, Bill C9. C22 is absolutely shocking. It gives police the right to survey your email, your social media, everything that's out there on the basis really of only suspicion. They might have to get a court order at some time, but not right away. And so this is combined with the censorship that's coming down through Bill C8 and C9. C9 is going to be I think, the end of free speech in this country. If that doesn't kill it, the Online Harms Act, which is coming again, will do so. We are headed for total loss of free speech in this country. And of course, like most dictators, they don't stop removing one freedom. They just keep removing more. And in Carney's case, it's like he seized control of the government. He seized control of the spending, doubled what Justin Trudeau was spending, and somehow has masqueraded as this fiscally conservative type.
Right.
Amazing thing. I mean, I even talked to conservatives, say, well, he's fiscally conservative. No, he's not. There's nothing conservative about Mark Carney, small c or otherwise. And so, but while he's doing this, he's making it impossible for journalists or anybody to access information anymore. Access to Information Act's been gutted. So we can't really ask questions. Ministers are exempt from ATI in many cases now. They're exempt from the law. The last budget made certain that ministers could not be charged if they broke the law, but it was in the national interest that they did so, which of course is defined once again by the government.
Whose nation?
And once he's got that, though, then he starts to erode free speech. So we can't complain about it. We can't publicly go out there and say, hey, this is very, very dangerous. And under Bill C8, of course, a station like mine can be taken off the air because I did not support the woke narrative. And yeah, they stipulated a little less drastic than that. But I can be taken off the air, and I can't even tell you why why I disappeared off the air. It would be illegal for me to say, hey, the government forced me off the air. I couldn't say that. And that, of course, fulfills everything Mark Carney wants. He's got the power that he sought. He's controlling public expression. He's social media and the media itself. It's already in his pocket. But now, of course, it too, along with everybody else, will not be allowed to say certain things at the risk of being shut down. So are you concerned about the evaporation of free speech in Canada and how it might affect what you're allowed to say on X every day?
Oh boy, am I. And it's funny, I was actually talking to my neighbor the other day, and he said, we've all learned through the Bible that there's supposed to be the rise of some antichrist. And he says he thinks he's witnessing it live. He does. He told me, him and his wife's going, right, it's like he's tweaking little mechanisms here and there so that you won't notice at first. And then as you try to push back, well, you can't do that because he's already tweaked that. So this is your other avenue. It's like putting your finger in a bunch of leaks, right? And every time we find a way to maybe express ourselves or get something out there, he's going to find a way to stop it. So the whole free speech, seriously, a random person, oh my Lord, I saw something on YouTube and I absolutely hated it. I'm so offended. Go get them. And it's anonymous. The fact that someone can anonymously report you for hate speech or whatever without defining what hate speech is, it's just like the guns, well, what exactly is an assault style weapon? Define it, please. And I'm finding more and more that I find I can't help but wonder if part of the reason why he's not front and foremost all the time and why he plans to travel so much is because he's going to have his little minions do all the very unpalatable, unacceptable things so that we focus on that and we don't see what he's doing. But at the risk of sounding extreme, and I try not to because I think so much and I try to analyze everything, he's our worst nightmare. He's not just our worst nightmare. I think he's going to be a pox upon the globe. He's trying to completely redefine the entire planet's economy, like the whole system and how it's going to work. And he's starting with us. So first he laid the groundwork when he was an advisor. Now he's got the power to finish pulling all the levers to make it happen. And we have been, I think, slow walked into this without realizing it. And they've done a really good job of painting people like you and I who point these things out as fanatics, as, oh, right-wing racist bigots and all the other ists, you know, like, I don't know about you, I'm sick and tired of being called names by a government that's supposed to represent me. I am fed up with having every aspect of my life controlled. I never voted for this. I never voted for like the WEF. I never voted for UN. I never voted for Ukraine funding. And for the love of God, why are we spending so much of this money outside of our country? And I think that might be part of, I mean, like, it just came down. I heard it today. Couldn't tell you where. I'd have to go find it again. But they're going to be cutting some of the spending there. It might have been Moose on the Loose, cutting the spending on how much is going to be leaving the country now for foreign aid. Well, if it's not leaving the country in foreign aid, what's it going to do? Maybe it's going to go into this new defense bank that, you know, that's crazily set up just like GFANS and their whole net zero banking alliance. Or is he going to create another layer of bureaucracy and funnel money to that, which is going to funnel out as, you know, kind of like a foreign aid concept, but only if they agree to, like, well, you're going to have to put in, you know, solar panels and wind turbines and go with hydrogen. And it's just, he has a master plan, and I don't think anybody's privy to it. I mean, I made the fatal error at first of thinking, you know, maybe I got the sense from him when he first came on scene that he was a bit of a cuck, you know, that in my mind's eye, I could see him going home at the end of the day, the door would close, and then his wife turns around and would, you know, give him hell for all the things he screwed up on that day. And he's probably like, yes, ma'am. You know, that was my perception, that she wore the pants. But I'm at the point where I think they each have one leg in those pants, and they're determined to overhaul everything. And we're just so bloody complacent. They went, on a map, let's see, I have 3 citizenships. Canada, they're pretty weak-minded people. They don't stand up for themselves. Let's go start there. It's disgusting. It's terrifying. And I fear for my daughter's future now because I'm outspoken. I'm also Gen X, and I really don't care. So, I mean, I really don't care. And but I care for my daughter. Yeah. You know, I worry for her. Like, she's high functioning autistic, and she actually comes home from school on a regular basis. She's like, well, my teacher was talking about Mark Carney today and how he was a great banker, and I went, what? And so I've asked to be invited to these classes in the classroom, and yeah, I have with all the immigration that's come in, and we're going to be the minority in our own country inside of 40 years. And I wonder what's going to be like in 40 years, where is she going to be? And what kind of terror issues is she going to have to deal with? Is there going to be money? Is there going to be a pension? You know, is she going to be allowed to just be her, or is she going to be forced to, you know, cater to certain religions and stuff? So I just, if you want to call it that, but I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. And I think what sickens me the most is there is zero oversight. The courts are stacked. The Senate is stacked. Anybody who can do anything to help us, those services, those agencies, those so-called arm's length independent groups, they've all been stacked with Carney lovers, with Trudeau lovers, with the whole green fever dream. Let's go after this, leave the oil in the ground and glue our bodies to the road kind of thing. Like, we're in for it. And if people don't wake up right now, and I mean like last month right now, if people don't start pushing back right now and educating themselves and seeing what's happening, we're doomed to fail. And I blame that on the fact we haven't fought a war on our own soil in over, well, what, 200 years? We have the luxury of being complacent and having other things to worry about than our own safety and security here at home. So, well, Carney's doing a good number on trying to change that right now too. So,
well, you've raised so many excellent points, and it's, I think what the job you're doing right now, there's a few there, and I think of Andy Lee, whom I know fairly well, largely because we text back and forth over the years, and BC Barracuda, who's also out there with the research, and it amazes me the tenacity and the dedication that you and others like that have, because obviously this is not something you always, maybe you did always want to do, but you never, you haven't spent a lifetime doing it. But you're doing it at a proficiency level, I think, which is really, really high, and which in many times is outclassing the journalists in this country, very few of whom really want to do investigative journalism. They get the news release, and I used to write them for the Department of National Defense, and they basically regurgitate everything you tell them.
Yeah.
And this has been the state of journalism for quite some time. It's almost that bad in the U.S., where they do not question government or government departments. But I think what you're doing, along with not a lot, but a few other people out there who are citizen journalists and who are doing a remarkable job exposing this incredible corruption. All I can say is keep doing it, and don't. And I hope we can continue to do it, because I don't honestly know how much longer this country. You expressed concerns about what kind of country your daughter's going to have. I really don't know if there's a country left for me anymore,
right?
Because it's becoming increasingly difficult, just to live. And I think just came back to me what I wanted your final opinion on was, I think if this home equity tax goes through, which of course Carney has toyed with, the Liberals have put out multiple test balloons on this to see what the response was. There was actually a parody poll put out a week or so ago, which I initially thought was real, because the country is so crazy. It said 95% of boomers support a home equity tax because it's going to reduce the national debt. And I thought, there's enough people out there who would say, good idea, we're going to reduce the debt. And you can take $15,000 out of my hide every year. So you'll pay it down. You'll pay the debt down with it. I know you will. And of course, if you're that naive, you probably deserve to have $10,000 to $15,000 taken out of your life. But I predict, Melanie, if this goes through, it will be the death knell to the Canadian economy. It will destroy possibly millions of livelihoods. And I think it's going to be the last thing on the camel's back that causes it to collapse, because we are so overtaxed in this country. I just went to the post office yesterday. I was sending a package out to one of the supporters who was on my show yesterday, and $22 to send it to Alberta. And I was kind of ready for that. And by the way, it was just a hoodie and a hat. It wasn't that bigger, And then they said, and then there's the pollution surcharge or the energy surcharge. I said, what the hell is that? Well, pollution's not free anymore. And I said, I haven't heard that since Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister. But they charged me almost $8 pollution surcharge.
That's insane.
And I'm thinking, every time we turn around in this country, there's another surcharge, another tax, another levy aimed against us, coming from somewhere. And I was listening to a guy yesterday on Redacted who said, and very, very sort of moderate guy who was a consultant to the National Defense, to the Trump administration in the past. And he said, I see a revolution coming because people won't be able to stand it anymore to be have-nots. And I'm thinking, you think it's bad there? It's in Canada. We're creating a permanent subclass of Canadians who once worked the hardest because they cannot afford to live in Canada anymore. They're basically living off their salary week to week, month to month, and most of it's going to housing, their mortgage, or the food on the table.
I don't know how it makes it.
And so, what's your opinion of this home equity tax, and where do you think that might go with this country?
I'm hoping it just goes the way of the dodo bird, to be honest with you. I've been thinking about that too, and I'm going to do some research. I want to look into currently my husband is still on this house. It's going to cost me $800 to remove his name, and all I have. I'm 51 years old, and in my 51 years, all I have now is this house. COVID decimated us, and I keep thinking, well, as soon as my daughter's old enough, hopefully when she's 16, I'll just add her name to the house. So I got to make it that long. So if something happens to me, hopefully it eliminates the headaches. But leave it to them. They're going to find a way. They'll find a way to tax that, because they want to take, if they haven't taken everything from you already, they won't be happy until they take the very last thing, which is your sense of security over shelter. So everything I do is literally for this house so that my daughter has some place to live. I'm encouraging her to try and find a way to make a living at home. She loves gaming and coding and stuff like that. So hopefully she can do that, because that'll help knock down the expenses of actual life. Because I don't see any type of recovery coming down the road. But leave it to the liberals, right? It's not just good enough to get blood from a stone. Like, they want the heart too. And they won't be happy until they crush it. And I don't know if they're deliberately trying to crush the soul of everyone under the guise of, oh, but we're helping you. We're the government. You can trust us. I just don't know why anyone believes that anymore. And I just don't understand why. How do people not see this? How do they not see this in front of them? I mean, I know we've got the media bamboozling everyone, and they like to do one-sided fact checks. Oh, well, no, that's not the case at all with the home equity tax at all. Oh, no, they're just, oh, no, it was just part of a workshop. And well, all bad ideas start with a workshop, in my opinion, because we're living it. We're not thriving in this country. We are surviving government after government right now. And I fear that's just the way it's going to be from now on. And I don't understand what's taking so long for everybody in this country to get all hopped up and do something. Seriously, I foresee, at the risk of sounding extreme, I mean, there are days I wake up almost every single morning and I'm angry. And that's what keeps me going. I'm angry and I don't like to be wrong. So I make sure I research everything down first. So I know that I have the right to be angry. So, and more people need to do that, because eventually there's more of us than there is of them. And I don't understand why people haven't caught on to that yet. I mean, I love the convoy. They went up there. Me personally, I would have just encircled through the 416 area. I would just closed off auto up here, right? If there was enough trucks. But it might have to come to that. And I mean, at one point we were winning, wars with pitchforks and sticks and rocks. And I fear it's going to get to that again. They're disarming us. They're taking away our means to communicate effectively. They're taking away our means to criticize. They're taking away our means to provide stability in our lives. Why? And for what? And I don't even want to liken it to the World War II aspect of it, because this is something new. This is a whole new something. And I don't even think it's on par with the whole global order WEF agenda. There's that whole circle of people, but I think there's a few people in that circle that have their own plan, and they're just moving the pieces. And sadly, we are just another pawn in that piece. So I've come to the point, like with my house, at least I own it. I don't know how anybody can make it anymore. I have no mortgage and I don't have to pay rent. I just have to pay property taxes, and which is good because I make less than $28,000 a year, right? And I intend to pour every spare cent I have into making this property the best it can be, like building up the house and fortifying. And I'm fortifying. Like, I was watching Juno News the other day, and Candace was talking about these Berna ballistic. It's like it's almost like a paintball gun, but it's like a firearm. Mm-hmm. I have a restricted license. I have a handgun in my house, and I can't use it. I can't take it anywhere. I can't do anything, but it's not listed on the list for the buyback stuff. So according to the law and the guy at the gun shop, I don't have to declare that. But now I'm being threatened with having my license suspended for my RPAL if I don't. Like, it's so much in limbo. So they're working really, really hard to beat us down and take everything from us to make us compliant for something bigger. And at the risk of sounding like, like, where's my tinfoil hat, right? I don't think what's coming down the pipe is good for us, and they're going to take everything. And why? Is it our resources? Is it the land mass? It can't be just money. It can't be just about the money. There's something else. And that's what I endeavor to find out every day. There's a reason why these people are doing this. There's connections. I mean, I spend a lot of time every day digging into Carney's background. Who did he know when? So, I mean, that's how I did the timeline. I looked at everything that Brookfield had done, And then I went and cross-referenced everything with his announcements coming out of the PMO that I get in my email every day. And this is what we talked about, and this is where I was. And so when you look at what the topics are, and you compare them to the other news, the financial news, the investment news of that day in the same area, and then you see all the overlapping links, there's something much larger at play here. And I have no idea what it is, but I'm going to find out. So help me. I'm going to form a theory. I'm sure about it. You'll hear about it. I'll write about it, because writing about it for me is cathartic. It helps me express it. And it also helps me realize that I'm not nuts. You know, I'm not insane, because other people think like this, or at least I'm running an idea out that maybe no one else has thought of. And a lot of people go, you know what? I never thought of that. And it gets people thinking. And that's what we need right now. We need Canadians to think. You don't have to make a decision on anything, but just think for 5 seconds. Just think. Who benefits? Why? Why now? You know, these questions aren't being asked. So yeah, they're going to, you know, he said it fine himself. I'll paraphrase because I can't remember the quote exactly, but the best way to become rich through Brookfield and places like that is to change the legislation so that they can operate within the legislation and force it. So when you really look at what they're forcing on us, you have no choice but to conclude we got something big coming down the pipe at us, and we're not going to like it. And that's why Carney's in, because he doesn't care. He doesn't care, and he will walk that line and take all the criticism and fling it off. He does not care. And we've reached that point. We've been building up to this for about a decade now, and we've reached the point where what's going to happen is going to be coming soon, because he doesn't care.
Wow, I couldn't agree more. Well, please keep. I shouldn't have to encourage you. I know you'll keep up the good work, and I think it's absolutely indispensable in this media world we live in today. So, well, thanks for the contribution show today, and probably I hope we can have you back to talk about things. You're a fantastic interview, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I've been asked for a lot of them, and I'm very shy, and you are the first one I have agreed to.
Well, is that right? Okay, no, you are a fantastic interview, and you're gonna be in everybody's show. So
well, that and guess what? Hey, I'm really not a bot. So there, hey, I proved it. I'm not a bot. I get that a lot. I'm a, so
thanks again, Melanie. We'll stay in touch.
For sure.
God bless. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
And that, of course, was Melanie in Saskatchewan. I got my hat on crooked. Want to show you a brief clip. This is what I thought of when Melanie was saying, you know, she wakes up.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
That, of course, is Peter Finch, the great Peter Finch, the actor portraying Howard Beale on Network. Great movie. Watch it if you've never seen it. Watch it again, because it's still incredibly, incredibly relevant. Screenplay by Patty Chayefsky, wonderful writer. It is remarkably still relevant when you watch that. I'm going to show you the merchandise. I'll be back again.
Who cares?
Yes, thanks. Sorry about that. Thanks for watching today. You know, I'm somebody who likes to bring on what I call new talent. I mean, Melanie says she's 51 years old, but she's really become a phenomenon on the internet. I first discovered her on X. I started reposting a lot of her material because I said, this is damn good material. She's a good woman, and we're going to have her on the show. I asked her, and you know, we had to work around because she's got a lot going on in her life. We found a time. I had to record it. She couldn't do live, but I said, you know, and I hope she's watching the show today, because I tried to show as many of your comments as possible. And she is a phenomenon. She's very popular with all of you. And I think with all of the folks who are watching this kind of broadcast. And I wish her well. She's got a YouTube station, and I think she'll be doing a lot of work, and she'll probably surpass me in a couple of months, because everybody else does. Because I've I don't know. It's and it always amazes me. We do a lot of research here. We put it out in our Substack, and people say, why aren't you doing research on this? Why aren't you doing stories on this? I'm saying, yeah, I can't. I tell you, the story we did on Mark Carney's connection to the Epstein files, I can say at this point in the show, we did 2 very good articles on that for Substack. I tried to do other articles for the legitimate media that I work for. In other words, not my own, not Substack, but I work for a number of media, US and Canadian. Nobody wanted to touch the Epstein file stories. I'm not kidding you, including one very prominent American outlet that I publish 2 or 3 stories on a week sometimes. They came back to me and they said, sorry, we can't do the Epstein story. And I said, why the hell not? I said, it's just reporting what's in the files. And I said, well, our legal people just aren't comfortable with it. We can't do it. So you're wondering why you're not seeing anything out there about the connection between Carney and Epstein? And believe me, this came up during one of Carney's trade missions to the UAE, the Sultan of Sicko. And read the columns on Substack. In fact, I'm going to highlight those tomorrow. I've been on a little long today, but I might do a second show today. I'm really, really feeling happy about doing this today. It's been a long time. I have to tell you folks, and God bless you again for all the support you've shown over the last 2.5 weeks. I've got to get out to BC in the next couple of weeks. I'll keep the show going, but it has been hard dealing with all of this, with my mother's passing, and not just the grief and the sadness, but I'm the executor of the will, and there's a lot of things that just have to be done. And you really don't feel like doing that when you're going through all of this. And I thank you for all the kind words. And, thank you, Susie, for calling me twice. That was so, so welcome. And for offering to put us up when we're out there. That was, and thank you for your prayers. And I want to say we will be doing a show in the next couple of days or so, giving you an update on the Universal Ostrich Farm situation. There is an imminent lawsuit there. It's just a question of when, and we will be covering it. We'll be covering it first. Promise you that. Thanks for watching today, everybody. God bless you, and Godspeed to all you do. I try to give you all the news you need to know. I try to bring people on this show who are both interesting as well as factual and truthful. And I hope we did that today. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.